Welcome back to another episode of the Sports Card Dad. We've got Rick Probstein of Probstein Auctions, but no, it is now Snype, no longer on eBay. Snype has the very first kind of the big auction going on right now. And at time of recording, 6 days. Actually, when this releases, there will be about 5 days left on Monday night, November 17th. It will close 22,000 plus items on Snype right now. Rick, how are you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm doing great. Actually, by the time people see this, we're almost at 25,000 items right now.
Oh, okay.
So by,
All
by
right.
tomorrow, I think we're at 24,800. So by tomorrow, we'll definitely have over 25,000 items. And what's unique about it is it's very similar. And I think what a lot of people liked about our eBay store is that there was something for everybody. So if you collect autographs, or you collect memorabilia, you collect vintage, you collect superstars, you collect pokey, you collect sealed, it's all there. And it's really all there, you know. So there's over 500 consigners have helped us, launch the platform. Thank you to
Okay.
them. And there's literally 25,000 items up.
And you started with about 150, 200 consigners, and now it's moved to 500?
There's a pool of
Awesome.
500 consigners that have consigned with us so far.
Nice. Okay. What have you been? Okay. Oh, I know what I was going to ask too. So you keep on adding more. So now you're up to 25,000. Does that all end on November 17th, or do we have new auctions
Now,
that are going out? Okay.
it's about 3 or 4 thousand auctions ending a night, and then we have it spaced out. At this point, we're giving everything about 2 weeks to run, just giving everything extra eyeballs. Once we're really really solid, then it probably will be back to our normal 7 day type of thing. But I think right now, I think 2 weeks is a healthy way to go about it in terms of getting the proper eyeballs on it.
For those that have not been on the site yet, I do have an affiliate link that will be in the video description as well as the pinned comments to take you there. I'll pin kind of an auction that I'm watching. I've got a bunch of them actually, but how have you been seeing this, Rick, over the first kind of 7, 8 days of being online? Because I'm sure you're following kind of web action and paying attention to how many users are coming on and that sort of stuff. How has it been? How's the growth? I guess just adding new users and bidders. Is it what you thought? Where are you at with it?
Yeah, great question. So I spoke to a whole bunch of bidders just to sort of like get their feedback and their opinion. Um, so the one thing is there's a lot of people that just sort of like their first kick of the tire was just to like just look at stuff, and they actually didn't even like register. There's a lot of people that like they went on and looked and they didn't register. And then there's other people that they registered and they started the bidding process, but their intent is like something that's ending 5 days away or 6 days away or 7 days away is an eternity in the auction world. And people sort of like they want to get dirty with it, probably over this weekend where they're just closer to the date when things are ending,
Yeah,
which is the people that I spoke with, that was sort of their reaction. Um, the one trend that I thought would be more significant, which has not been significant yet, which is I think it's a conversation in of itself, is that we built 3 tier bidding, which no auction platform has currently. And I think that that's sort of like a new thing and unique to people. So everybody has next bid, everybody has sort of like a max bid type of feature, but the snipe is something that no auction house or no auction platform gives to bidders. And I think that there's a level of people just being a little uncomfortable with it. Like they're just not sure how it works. They haven't seen it before. So I think that after the first night ends and they see how the snipe hits, and then it's recurring with extended bidding, so that the snipe is cohesive with extended bidding, so your snipe keeps coming back. I think that we'll see more snipe. So we can see in our system if somebody made a snipe, but I cannot see the snipe, which is something that we impressed upon the technology staff and the technologists that developed the platform, that we don't want to be able to see any of the bids, which we cannot. So if somebody puts in a max bid, I have no idea what their max bid is. If somebody puts in a snipe, I have no idea what their snipe is,
yeah.
and nor do we want to know what their snipe is.
Yeah, and shill bidding has been kind of a hot topic here lately. You and I discussed this going back a few weeks ago. I'm actually going
Yeah.
to play now. I'm going to slip into this conversation. You had a really good just IG reel that was about a minute long that I'll throw in here. as kind of a reference point.
Taken many preventative measures to stop shill bidding. Here are just three of them. Okay, one, we have two types of bidders. There's a regular bidder who's auto paid, and then there's a super bidder who is pre-approved. They have to be pre-approved to bid on the expensive items. Two, all the bidder IDs are completely exposed. Everything is transparent. Three,
is it okay to defensively bid on your own cards when they're at auction?
all the sellers, consigners are not able to bid on their own items. It's completely blocked. Don't call me Shilstein. I think the bidder IDs being exposed is really going to make people feel a lot more comfortable.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
And you
are
can
you
really
the only
just,
auction house that has that? I think you might be the only auction. I know eBay did it a long time ago and then
yeah.
stopped doing it.
I don't think anybody else fully exposes the bidder IDs, and it's transparent. You know, you can go and you can look and see who's bidding, and you're interacting with them in terms of like a social aspect to the platform. And we did it because we want to know who you're interacting with. Like you can't just be like going back and forth with some dude, you know, X4 dash dash dash, you know, like asterisk asterisk asterisk, and you just don't know who you're interacting with, you know. So I think inevitably people will get used to it, and I think they're going to be excited about that, you know, transparency. But it's going to take some getting used to because they're not used to that yet. And I think that'll, you know, when they get comfortable with that, then that'll also sort of increase the chat feature as well, where people start interacting a little bit more.
I did see one comment going back a couple weeks ago that I thought was a good one, and it was around, will you ever have kind of a feedback score attached to a username? I understand you mentioned that you don't necessarily want to show a purchase history, you know, for everybody because
But you see a transaction number. So if a guy has 85 transactions, or if a guy has 8,000 transactions, you'll see how hot and heavy he's been on the platform. And if somebody's a new user, you'll also be able to make that determination, like, oh, this is a new account, and you'll be able to make that determination.
And I had somebody, I didn't really understand the comment here recently that said something like, "Oh man, like I have to jump through hoops to be a super bidder, or I have to become a super bidder. Why do I have to do that?" But I can tell you guys, I'm a super bidder, and it's a very quick and easy process. I mean, you do give the platform does ask for a reference, essentially a hobby reference. But I mean, tell me, like, how many super bidder applications have you turned away? Or, has it been, it seems like a pretty easy process, at least now, to become a super bidder.
Yeah, I mean, most people are giving us, sort of like their experience in the industry, and they're giving us a reference, and we're being a little bit more lenient than we might be in the future. You know, if somebody doesn't pay for something, they could lose their status as a super bidder and just become a regular bidder. But one of the main things that they get for being a super bidder is that if they want to opt out of authentication and require grading on a raw card, they have the ability to do so. So a lot of people, if they win a $200 raw card, they don't necessarily want to have it graded. And now they have the ability to opt out if they are a super bidder. And then for us, we're vetting the super bidders to make sure that the person's approved. And it's a preventive measure at the last minute. So let's say, there's a card going off at 9 o'clock at night, and somebody wants to open an account, at 8:57. In those cases, we're going to be a little bit more careful. If the guy has, no history, no references, we don't know the name, we're probably not going to approve it, that late in the game. And that's where a lot of the drama was on eBay, was that people would create accounts at the last second. They would swoop in with no feedback and then just win an account and then not pay. So with us, everybody's either going to be auto pay, or there'll be a super bidder who we've approved. And that should definitely reduce the unpaid items.
Yeah, and from what I gathered, you had said something that, the unpaid item thing is not going to be something where you get 3 strikes or 10 strikes, or, I feel like on eBay, and I bought most of my cards on eBay over the years, but that was always something where it's like, okay, it went unpaid and then it's back on the market again, or, that was always kind of a reoccurring issue. I think they've done some things to curb it, which have been good here recently, but from what I've heard from you, there's not going to be a lot of leniency when it comes to unpaid items.
And listen, I've won thousands of items on eBay, and I can still, I still bid on eBay. I've never not paid for an item before, so, there's no reason why, and then also, let's say you forgot or you didn't realize that you won, you do get 2 or 3 or 4, notifications to pay for an item. So there's no reason that somebody should, not pay for an item unless they just weren't really trying to win the item or pay for the item. In that case, there's consequences to your actions.
Now with the CGC grading for raw cards, you have it set at $100? Is there kind of I heard some chatter on this from some other content creators. Are you pretty stringent on that $100, or could that be like a moving target down the road where maybe you change it to 250 or 500 or something? And then on the other question I have is, could it be?
We wanted it to make we
grading
wanted to make it lower than we wanted to make it lower than what eBay is. eBay's at 250, just because $100 is a significant investment into a card, and if you're spending $100 on a card, which is a lot of money for people on a raw card, you want to make sure that it's not trimmed, it's not altered, it's not recolored, hasn't been played with, there isn't some sort of surface dent or nick, or like you should be getting a card that's going to grade an 8, 9, or 10 depending upon what it is. And if it's a vintage card, you'll have a high res scan, and you can see that there's a light crease on the Mickey mantle. It should be very transparent to you. But at the same time, we want to empower people that if they don't want to have the card graded, that they can opt out simply, and they can just say, you know what, I just want the card, and then that's fine. We're giving people the option.
For the grading piece, is that an exclusive with CGC that Snype has, or are you open to in the future? Maybe it's BGS and PSA, and they've got a few different options for that.
I mean, we discussed very openly with CGC that a lot of people, especially with vintage cards, they prefer to have them in a PSA holder, and CGC recognizes that. So that conversation will continue in the future. But we do have a deal in place with them for cards, and I do think that there will be a lot more people who will get their vintage cards graded in CGC and realize that it's a nice holder and they're getting good grading, and I think that will pick up and grow. Beckett at one point was very weak with grading vintage cards, and it did pick up at one point. I just think that Beckett made a strategic mistake having a BVG as a separate brand within their big brand. I think that a 1980 Magic Johnson rookie, and that's where they started the BVG going back. Having that with a BVG holder versus a BGS, I think was a buzz killer, and sort of like I think it was a strategic mistake that really damaged people wanting to get their vintage cards graded by Beckett. I think that if they would have kept everything as BGS and just had one unifying brand, I think it would have carried on much better. I still think that they should make the change, that all the BVG stuff should just be everything should just be BGS.
Yeah, just switch all the cases. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Let's go back to the Snype option, because I feel like you kind of nailed it. There probably needs to be just more education, just people getting used to it.
Yeah.
Explain again, kind of, all right, you're looking at this item. Most people are just going to bid like they always do. So why would you give me kind of the case study as to why Snype?
Listen, you're playing. I'm not a card player, but if you're playing cards, you want to just hold your hand till the end, right? It's the same thing. You want to, if you're really, 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 really trying to win the card and it's an important card to you, you can't do better than bidding with 2 seconds left. And the technology is rock solid. And then it's cohesive with extended bidding. So once it hits an extended bidding, your Snype bid will recur. So let's say it's at $400 and the auction's about to end and you have it sniped for $1,000. You will snipe, I think they're at $10 increments at $400. So your Snype will come in at 410, and now it resets at 15 seconds. If no other bid comes in, you win that card for $410, even though you sniped it for 1,000. If another bid comes in, let's say somebody bids 420, then it'll reset at 15 seconds. Now, you've sniped 1,000, your Snype will then come back at 430 automatically. So you're not one and done. It's a recurring Snype. And then if nobody else bids again, you win the card for 430, which could happen, if it runs through the 15 seconds. So you have everything in the world to gain and nothing to lose by sniping. And that's like the key feature of the site and the platform. And it also enables you can bid probably on twice as many items and manage your bids much more effectively as well. You can see from the outside when you do a search that you have a Snype on an item in addition to a regular bid. So let's say you're buying up all the Jordan rookies. We use that example, and there was 10 on the platform, and you sniped all of them, and then 2 new ones appear, and you do the search the next day, you'll be able to see which ones you've sniped, and you'll see the 2 that you haven't sniped, and then you can decide whether you want to place a bid or snipe those as well. So I think once people sort of like play around with the feature and they do it a couple times and they see how effective it is, I think that at some point people just probably will only snipe rather than bidding.
So question on, let's go back to that example. Okay, so it's sitting at $400. What if there's multiple snipes? So let's say there's an $800, a $900, and $1,000 snipe. And so if that thing ends, does it then go up from 400 to 800? Kind of where that
So
high
it's going to be a combination of the 3 of those based on who bid first and all sorts of other variables. It's going to get it to 800. But if in that case, if there's snipes at 800, 900, and 1,000, the person with 1,000 will win it from the next variable from 900. So I think at 900 it goes to 925. So if somebody snipes 800, somebody snipes 900, somebody snipes 1,000, the guy who sniped 1,000 will win it at, I think, 925 will be the number.
But it'll start over. So what'll happen is like it ends, and then because there's 3 snipes, there'll be another 15 seconds, I guess, for everybody
every time it hits another increment, it'll go 15 seconds. Now, an important thing is, let's say you snipe for 1,000, and then somebody else snipes for $1,004. Okay, and the increment is at $25. The person who snipes $1,004 will still win, even though they didn't exceed the next incremental bid. So we make the increments go away when it's in the extended bidding period.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, the highest bid should win,
I think what's going to be fun is to watch auctions end and then be able to kind of record how it happened. Yeah, we can kind of talk through scenarios of what, and I think as people see it more and get used to it, then because it definitely adds to the gamesmanship,
Also
of
from the outside of the site, you can just sort from the outside ending soonest, and then you can just watch the fireworks. So there's an hourglass countdown that's going on each one, and you can see the bids changing, and you could literally just sit there and watch 20 auctions that are all in extended bidding. And then you can jump in. Like with the big auction houses, you have to, place a bid before 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock in order to be a part of the extended bidding. With us, you can steal the bacon at any time. So let's say you're just watching 20 auctions and they're all in extended bidding, and you're like, this is crazy. And then you're like, you know what? I want that item. You can just click on it, go in, hit a bid, and win it, even though you weren't a part of it, until the end. And we think that that's, an exciting feature for people to have.
Are you going to have, there's just going to be too many. I was just thinking, are you going to have like certain marketing? I was thinking there could be some fun marketing around that, but you're going to have so many of these kind of, these action-packed auctions at the end. But anyway, yeah, you're right. Especially if we have a bunch of, people in the chat, as people get used to this, the chat feature along with the snipes, it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, you can taunt people. You can be like, you're going down,
It's going to be awesome.
Or you can make an intelligent point about the listing, if you want to, if you want to go geek level, you could be like, do you know how tough this card is? Like, if you want to go there, fine. You have that option.
How have people been using it? I'm sure some people have been using it here and there, but I've got to assume, just like with the snipe feature, that it's going to take a little while for people to get used to that chat feature.
Yeah, and I think the chat feature will be used more once the items are getting closer to finishing, and then they're in extended bidding, and they're sort of like, if you have a really expensive item and it's, the extended bidding is going back and forth, you might see people just start like really,
I can see people
in.
doing like a bluff, like in the chat, like, oh, this is getting too expensive. There's no way I'm probably gonna bow out or whatever, like a bluff in the chat.
Listen, it's going to make it interesting. Like I personally, whenever there's a thread on Facebook or Blowout or on a newsreel, I always look at the threads. I always find it interesting and fascinating when people have to say, even the person who's, you're not really taking their comments so seriously. I do find it entertaining. So, I think it's great to let people express themselves, keep it PG-13. But other than that, I think it's good. And I think people will enjoy it. Like they want to interact with people. People are doing this because it's fun. And, we put in a lot of features that are going to make it more fun. There's nothing worse than having an auction end and there's no video, no chat, no extended bidding, blah blah blah, and it just ends. Like here you have like some level of excitement going on, and I think people are really going to enjoy it.
Yeah, I did see you had a BGS 8586 Fleer Jordan, and I was flipping through and I saw the video where you kind of just, explain the card. And it's just something that you don't see. There's kind of like a live selling, it's kind of wrapping some live selling elements, into the auction. So yeah,
Our
it's a fun
staff,
fight.
I don't know if we're going to be able to keep this up, but our staff has made over 15,000 videos for all the items.
Wow.
I personally, in case I sound a little hoarse, I personally have made a video on every one of the $1,000 plus items. And I've made, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos so far. Every day I just go into the lab and boom, let's go crank them out, so it's actually fun. I get most of them on the first take, but there's a couple where I get stuck and I don't really know what to say, but I figure it out in the second or third takes.
All right, we're at the 21-minute mark just about. So how are you looking? And again, I think that you kind of nailed it. We still have 5 days or so. Monday night, is when it ends, and the weekend I think is when it'll really heat up. But I've seen a lot of auctions that have heated up. I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, if you're looking at kind of like, are people getting comps or what the the values and that sort of thing. I mean, I'm looking for stuff that might be slipping through the cracks, but I'm finding fewer and fewer of those things. There are still some things though. So I would tell people, like I said, I've got links in the video description and the pinned comments to go check out Snype, but there could be some things, who knows? So get on there and check it out. There could be something that goes under or, at least try it out and see what's out there. But how have your consigners, have they been giving you any feedback? I know we still have time left, but are they like, this is cool, Rick? Or are they like, Rick, what's going on?
Well, it depends on people's personality. I mean, most people know that all the bids come at the last second, so you just know that, normally like when we're running an auction on eBay, the bids double the last 24 hours. So if a card's $1,000 item, it can easily be sitting at $400 or $500 with a few hours to go. And then it usually gets to its price. I don't think that that's going to be different here. If anything, if people are really utilizing the Snype rather than bidding ahead, it could actually be lower going into, the extended bidding period for the item. So people could be holding back and just waiting and waiting because they're all sniping, which is sort of how we envision the platform, which just makes it that much more fun and exciting when you see, the fast and furious bids come in. Overall, we're seeing excitement. So we actually we have somebody who's doing a little bit of sales for us on the road. He was in Dallas this week, and I said, he probably spoke to a few hundred people. I said, what percent of the people that you spoke to knew about Snype? And he's like over 75%, which is a very, very, so the word on the street is out. People know about it, and now they're just getting on and bidding. And the desktop is probably the easiest way to get on and do tons of bidding. It's hard to bid on dozens and dozens of items on a phone versus the desktop. So the desktop is going to be definitely, you're going to be able to do your bids much quicker and easier on the desktop.
Absolutely. That's how I've been using it as well. Awesome, man. Well, hey, so the plan is this huge auction is going to end on Monday evening, and Rick and I are going to attempt to come on Monday morning time frame, maybe like Monday morning, noontime. There will be another video kind of coming out to talk through kind of the last countdown for that first big auction. So we'll see you in another few days, but yeah, this thing is, it's kicked off. Snype is here. Make sure you check it out. Rick, any last words before we jump?
Get on and bid.
Get on and bid. All right, man. We'll talk to you in a few days.
Okay. Thanks so much.